So we mentioned the chromatic scale. That's when we have all of the 12 notes. But we don't usually want to use all of the 12 notes all of the time. And so what we do is what we use is what are called scales. And here I'm going to introduce two different concepts. What I'm going to call a scale and a rooted scale. Normally, when people talk about scales, they talk about rooted scales. So a rooted scale, a scale is just a subset of the notes. In this case, we're going to talk about subsets of the 12th tone equal temperament, but it could also be other types of scales that come from, maybe it's the just intonation scale that we built by using perfect fifths. Or maybe it's one of the many scales used in Indian music that doesn't fit the 12th tone equal temperament. And it's just going to be a subset of notes. A rooted scale is a scale with a root, which is like a special note that feels like home. And so let's have a look at some scales. So here I have C3 major, which is a very common scale. That's, if you have the piano, that's just playing all the white keys and ignore the black keys. So that's C major, and that's rooted in C. But I could have A minor. Maybe make it a little bit lower. This will sound very similar, and that's because A minor and C major, they're exactly the same notes. It's just the root that is different. So these would be the same scale, different roots. Okay. How do we build these ones? So the idea is that the major, we're gonna take let's try to build that here. So let's mute this one and let's use this one. So we begin with the root, which is gonna be the unison. Then we're gonna take the tone. Then we're gonna take the major third, so that's gonna be 4. Then we take the 4th and the 5th, that's 5 and 7. Then we take the major 6th, which is the 9, and we take the major 7th, which is the 11. Yep. And so that would be the C major scale. If we want to do something with a different root, maybe A major, then we just start with a different note. So A major would be starting from -3 compared to C3. And so that's the same kind of flavor because it's the major flavor, but it's a completely different scale because we have different notes, right? The question is then, how do we get A minor? So instead of using the tone, we are going to still use the tone. The tone is nice, we like it. But the major third is going to be changed for a minor third. The major 7th is going to be changed for a minor 7th. And the major 6th is also going to be changed for a minor 6th. And you will notice that this will have the same notes as C major. So this is then we have major and we have minor. And what you'll notice is that these can be written based on semitones and tones. So if I just write down the steps, so major is going to be a tone, then another tone gives us the major third. Sorry, let's just write it down. So it's 0, 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12. And so what we have is a tone, a tone, a semitone, a tone, a tone, a tone, and then there's going to be semitones here, right? Whereas the minor, it is 0, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 10, 12. So it's still going to have a tone here, a tone here, and a tone here, and a couple of tones over here, and 2 semitones over here. So both of them are made of, well, major is going to be tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Whereas minor is going to be tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. And what I want you to notice is that these are just shifted over, right? And then this T becomes this one, and this S becomes this one. And so the major scale, the minor scale, they're both just like transposes of each other. But of course there's 7 notes, so there's 7 transposes. And these are what are called the modes. And in particular, these are called the diatonic modes. Because we could have different scales, right? We could have like set 2 semitones back to back and then all the 5 tones. That's going to be a weirder scale that we're not as used with. We're going to be working with the diatonic scales. So what are they? They have very fun names, and they are what we call Locrian, Phrygian, Aeolian, Dorian, Mixolydian, Ionian, and Lydian. Okay, and so the question is, what happens to the second note in the scale? And the second note in the scale is the reason why we call these intervals the second. What is going to be the third note in the scale? It's going to be the 4th note in the scale, the 5th note in the scale, the 6th note in the scale, and the 7th note in the scale. These are the questions that we're going to ask each other. The question is, to begin with, what are these weird names? Where's my major chord? Where's my minor chord? Well, this one here is going to be the major chord, the Ionian. And the minor chord is going to be Aeolian. However, Aeolian and Ionian just sound way cooler. And so the question is, do they have the perfect 5th? Yes, every single one of these has the perfect 5th, except for Locrian. Locrian has a tritone instead. What about the 4th? Surely everyone should have the perfect 4th. Well, of course. Everyone has the perfect 4th. Everyone except for Lydian. Lydian has a tritone instead. So that's not super great, Lydian. Why do you have the tritone? Well, what about the major third or minor third. What about a third note? That's going to tell us if it's a flavor, which is a minor sound or a major sound. And Mixolydian, Ionian, and Lydian are going to have major sounds, whereas from Dorian onwards, Dorian, Aeolian, Phrygian, and Locrian are going to have minor thirds. Yep. Well, what about the sevenths? The sevenths, surely everyone should have the same here. And of course, here, Ionian and Lydian do have the major seventh, but Mixolydian instead has the minor one, and everything else has the minor seventh. What about the sixth? Let's talk about the sixth later. What about the second? Everything has a tone as the second, except the Phrygian and the Locrian, which have semitones instead for the second note. And so the only difference that we're missing is between Aeolian and Dorian, and that's going to be the sixth note. Dorian is going to have a major sixth, as well as all the major chords. And from Aeolian onwards, we have a minor sixth. Okay, so this tells us a bit of what they look like, but we don't know what they sound like. So let's actually hear some of those. So let's begin with, let's stay with C. So we'll begin with Locrian. Let's play it now. Locrian is quite a weird sound because it has the semitone here and it has the tritone for the fifth. For the Phrygian, all we are doing is change the fifth so that we have a perfect fifth. We still have this weird semitone as the first note, which is what changes for the Aeolian. And this is the same as the minor mode. I'm gonna update it, but nothing is going to change because that's the minor mode. Dorian is interesting because it starts mixing a little bit of minor and major. And you will notice that it is actually the one that is halfway in our list. And you can see that it is actually also symmetrical. So it's this one, these two, and these two. So it is quite a symmetrical kind of chord. Then we have Mixolydian, which is our first major mode. And you can see that the third now is the major third. And then we have our Ionian, which is going to be our major. And the last one is going to be Lydian, which is going to have the tritone on the fourth. And as you can see, well, everything is quite nicely between each mode. All we do is change a single note. And which notes they have for each specific is what tells us which mode we are in. And the question is, are Locrian and Lydian, they look like they're as far apart as possible from each other, right? But what if I told you that they're actually very close to each other? They're literally right next to each other. And the thing is that if we take Lydian and we consider Locrian, all we need to do is to change the root. And by changing the root, the tone becomes a semitone, the major becomes the minor, the tritone becomes a perfect, the perfect becomes a tritone, the major becomes a minor, major becomes a minor. So let's just play leading again. And now let's play C sharp Locrian. So that's increasing the root by 1 and changing the mode to Locrian. Back to C sharp, back to C, how's it called? Lydian. And back to C sharp Locrian. They're the same notes except for the root. Okay. So these are all the diatonic modes. They're quite fun. They have different flavors based on the different notes that they use. And now we will be talking about actually making chords out of these intervals and these notes.